Hey everybody, great to have you back here in the fish tank. It's Minion Masters patch notes time again. We're going to go through all the new stuff that's being added in version 2.8, but before we dive into that, just a very quick reminder. If you're enjoying the content here, make sure you give a thumbs up. If you're new, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you want to support the channel. Right, without any further ado, let's jump in to find out what's going to be in this patch. Okay, so we're still in the power-up expansion. This is going to be the third and final season in the expansion, and this one is going to be called Bearzerker, and we'll see why shortly. So, as I mentioned, version 2.8, dropping Tuesday the 24th of September. There's going to be a new season pass with a new card and 2 alternate master perks. There's also, of course, going to be some new cosmetics, and there's a good one. Balance changes, bug fixes, and I'll tell you about the new tournament. So, without any further ado, let's find out about the new card that's being added. And of course, that is the Bearzerker. So here she is. Looks awesome, but is she awesome? What does she do? Let's find out. So, the Bearzerker. And as I mentioned, I think when we looked at this earlier in the PTR video, this is kind of like if the Highland Huntress and Urklaw had a baby. Because, as you'll see, it's got facets of both of them. So, she is a Stout Heart range minion. We can see she's supreme. 7 mana, so pretty damn expensive. The things that she shares in common with the Highland Huntress is every 8 seconds she has this Vicious Strike, which does 200 damage, which is very, very powerful and definitely needs to be paid attention to. Remember, you can tell when the Vicious Strike is ready and charged up because she has sort of a whirlwind sort of animation around her. And then if we look at her stats compared to the Highland Huntress, she does the same damage, 45 every 1.3 seconds, but she's tankier, 420 health as compared to the Highland Huntress's 300. But, and this is where her similarity with Urklaw comes in, at 50% health she does a roar, which removes all stun, frozen and fear effects from herself. So she's no longer stunned, frozen or feared. And she fears everything else nearby. Now remember, Urklaw used to do that fear when he roared. Urklaw was changed, so instead of doing the fear, he does the stun, which makes more sense for Urklaw because he's melee, and fearing things away from him kind of make it awkward for him to actually get damage. But of course, she's ranged. Not very long range, but ranged nonetheless. So instead of stunning everything, she fears them. She also gains haste, and this resets her Vicious Strike. So even if she's just Vicious Strike, that 200 special damage, once she roars, the Vicious Strike is ready to go again. So definitely some things to pay attention to with regards to playing with her or against her. Okay, so that's the Bearzerker, which is the only new card in this expansion because if you've been following along, you know we also have alternate master perks, and the plan is to add those as we go. So we already have every master having 1 alternate master perk. Now we're going to have another 2 added for a couple of masters. So let's find out about those. So remember, the alternate master perks are perks you can change either in the deck building or in the match, and you can react to what you're playing against as appropriate. Okay, so the first new alternate perk is going to be for Apep. Let me just slide out of the way here. Okay, so this is an alternate perk 2, which replaces his default perk 2, or as an option to change, which, of course, his default is the Shield Totem. So this is going to be called the Papyrus of the Black Obelisk. And this is going to be a minion book. So like Morelia has her spellbook, Milloween has her spellbook with her Zanian perk 2. Apep's also going to have the potential to have a book, but this is going to be a minion book. So every 30 seconds, you get the 1-use Papyrus of the Black Obelisk card added to the top of your deck. It's a 0-cost card, and of course, just like the other spellbooks, you just use it, and then it opens the book, and you get 4 options. So what does it do? This replaces your hand with 4 random minions selected from your opponent's deck. Each of the 4 options gets one of the following effects. And you can get potentially, if your opponent doesn't have the minions or enough minions, then you'll get duplicate minions, and there's a fallback, I think. So the idea is you get access to minions from your opponent's hand. So remember, this is copying it whilst they're in their 4-card hand, not from their deck. So there's some timing that could potentially be important there if you're trying to copy something specific. So as mentioned, you get these 4 options, but they have effects. So the effects are always the same. So that the slot 1 in the deck, the card 1 in the book is always going to be the essence of the Crawling Chaos, and that will give you normal cost of the minion, but it will gain spirit. Now if you copy something like Legionnaires where there's 4 minions, only one of them will get spirit. But this also has a sacrifice mechanic which may work well with APEP's first alternate perk, the Slave Driver, where the minions, and that's all of them if there's multiple, will also gain rage. So that's section 1, no, card 1, page 1 if you want, in the book. Page 2 is always going to be Born of the Black Wind, and that simply just means it will cost 1 less mana. Page 3 is the Tribute to the Black Pharaoh, and the minion will cost 2 less mana, but when they're summoned they will have Taunt and Marked, which, depending on what you're stealing and what the situation of the battlefield is, the Taunt and Marked might be good, the Taunt and Marked might be bad. The Marked is probably always going to be bad, or at least at best irrelevant, whereas the Taunts will be maybe good, maybe bad. So remember, Taunt makes stuff close to it attack it, and Marked will mean any ranged enemies within range, their range, will attack it. Right, so that's page 3. Page 4, the Torment of the Dweller in Darkness. So this will cost 3 less mana, but the minions summoned will have slow and poison equal to half their maximum health. So you get cheap stuff, but it's very damaged. And if we have a quick look at what that looks like in practice, and again, let me just slide out of the way here. Okay, so this is the spell book. The book, the Papyrus of the Black Obelisk. So we've used the card, we've opened the book, we got our 4 options. Okay, so we got a full cost Vulture Prime, which has the essence of the Crawling Chaos, which means it will gain spirit. We have in the second one, we have the Tantrum Throwers, which are reduced by 1 mana, so they're only 1 mana here. Third page, the Tribute to the Black Pharaoh. We've got the Zealots here, so they are 2 mana less. So instead of 7, you can see they're 5. And you can tell the cost is reduced because it's green, the number. White means it's normal, green reduced, and red more expensive if that ever happens. So remember, they will both spawn with Taunt and Marked. And the last page, the Torment of the Dweller in the Darkness. So we got the Brother of the Burning Fist, 7 mana card. You're getting it for 4 mana here because it's reduced by 3. But remember, that will also be slowed. So that means it is going to be slower moving and attacking. And it will also be poisoned equal to half of its health. Okay, so that's the first new alternate master perk. The Papyrus of the Black Obelisk for APEP. Took a little explaining, but hopefully it makes sense. The next one's more simple. So the next one, we have an alternate master perk for Wrecked. So Wrecked already has an alternate perk 3, which is the Mass Illusion instead of the One Punch Blast. And now he's getting an alternate perk 1. So his normal perk 1 is where you can jump Wrecked onto the field and you get the clone opposite him. And then you can jump as and when going forward and always get that clone. The idea here is you get a better version of Wrecked, but you don't get the clones. So when you jump into the field, you will get Wrecked, but he will also have haste, so he'll be faster and his DPS will be higher. And he also has a rechargeable shield with 150 health. So he has a shield of 150 health. If it gets damaged and then he's not getting attacked, then that shield will regenerate back up to the maximum of 150. You also get the jumps whilst he's on the field, just like you would with the Shadow Dance, but you don't get the clones jumping opposite him. So similar, but different. And if we have a quick look at what this looks like in action, you can see here we've got the Wrecked. He's got this sort of shield VFX around him. And you can also see the light blue part of his health bar. That's the shield. So as that gets damaged, as he gets out of combat, or as not getting attacked, then that shield will regenerate. Right, so that's the new stuff in terms of the new card, the Bearzerker, and the 2 new alternate master perks. As always, let me know in the comments what do you think of the things that we're discussing. Next up, we have the new cosmetics, and we have a skin. Let me tell you, this is going to be interesting. So, the new skin is going to be a skin for Tronveir, and it's a little different to the previous skins we've seen for him. Let me introduce you to Beach Party Tronveir. Wow, this guy looks incredible. Clearly very ripped, and instead of holding the rune, and with his other alternate skin, the Undertaker kind of one, the coffin, here he is holding his lifeguard's chair. And I imagine he'll be throwing that at the enemies. Right, so a cool skin and a very different skin. I love it. First time I saw it, I laughed very much. Right, so that's the new skin. And of course we have things like the new avatar for the Bearzerker. And we have a new emote for Diona. So, of course, all of the new cosmetic content will be available in the paid pass. The new card will be available in both of the passes. You'll just get it quicker in the new pass. And the new alt perks should, I assume, just be available to everyone immediately. Okay, so that's the new stuff. Let's have a look at the existing stuff that's having some changes. We're going to look at the balance changes. What's getting stronger, what's getting weaker, and what's getting rebalanced. Of course, if you follow along with my meta videos each month, you'll have a good idea of what's strong in the different modes, and maybe what does need to be handled or buffed. So first of all, we're going to look at the buffs, things that are getting stronger. And we start off with the Masters, of course. So small buff to King Puff. His attack range going up from 8 to 10. So he's going to be outranged by less of the minions that currently outrange him, which is kind of awkward for him. So he's going back up to sort of like a standard master range. Next up, we have a change to Ravager. So Ravager is having a change to his alt perk, Overpower, which is a perk 1, which is the replacement for his Brooders, the Best Buds, I think it's called. Okay, so if you remember how that works, if you spawned a 5 mana minion, then it would have an empowered first attack, whereas now it's going to be if you spawn a 4 or more mana minions. So less deck building restrictions there, more buffs available, but the bonus damage is only going to be against minions. So I assume that's also not against buildings, but it could be. But normally if they say minions, it means only minions. If they say units, then that normally includes buildings as well. So basically just not against face for sure. Right, next up we have a buff for one of probably the least played alternate master perks, which is Tronveir's Runic Attunement, where you're spending mana on either minions, spells, or buildings, and every X amount of mana you get the rune associated with that. So the mana spend is going down, so minion spending is going down from 20 mana to 18, that gets you the Frost rune. The spell spending going down from 20 to 18, that gets you the Ancestor rune. And the building mana spend going down from 15 to 14, which gets you the Wind rune. And the Wind rune is getting a little nerf as well, so we'll talk about that in the nerf section. Right, so that's the buffs for the Masters. Let's have the buffs for cards. Okay, so Cheese Date. This is a nice one. So previously you got a random 3 mana scrap, but you didn't know what you were going to get. Now you do. It will show you what you're going to get, like a lot of the other random cards. So that makes it a lot more easy to play, rely upon, and get value from. But instead of everything being generally raged, you need that Scrat Swarm to rage whatever you're spawning. And remember, Scrat Swarm is 5 Scrats in your opponent's arena. Right. Next up we have Charge Speed going down for Lord Fanriel, which you could argue is a buff or a nerf. Obviously it gives the opponents a little bit more time to react to it, because the charge speed, the base speed is 4. Previously the charge was +8, speed of 12. Now it's going to be +6, a speed of 10. And really the main reason for doing that is that it will now be able to capture a bridge, which is definitely a big buff with regards to bridge control. But I don't know, let me know in the comments. Do you think this makes him stronger or weaker? Let me know. Okay, next one, we have a fairly recent card, the Frostfang Familiar, which is something we see very rarely. Remember, it flies around to your friendly units and gives them Vampiric and the Freeze. So their move speed's going up from 5 to 10, so they'll be able to much more quickly get to their target of choice, and their health's going up a little bit just to make them a little more tanky. So will we see more of that? I don't know, but should be more efficient if you decide to use it. Right, Morgrul's Ragers. So the main thing about these guys is they have the Voidborn Wound, which means if, when they're in your hand, you do damage to the enemy tower with a Voidborn minion, that triggers them, and their trigger is when you spawn them, everything gets Rage. Now, previously, if they were untriggered, they wouldn't have Rage, but the change has been made, so they always have Rage for themselves. They still have the Voidborn trigger that you need to activate, but they always have Rage themselves. So the idea here is obviously you've got the really valuable Give Everything Rage, but the unactivated one is stronger on its own. Okay, Mountain Shaper, very low played spell. Charge time is going down from 4 seconds to 3.5. Remember, that's charge time per charge, and there are up to 10 charges. So overall, 40 seconds going down to 35 seconds. Really don't see it very much. Not sure if that's going to change too much. A buff for the Scrapyard. So remember, the Scrapyard gives you the random Outlander ground minions. And previously, it could give you Simulacrum, which I don't know why it ever did that. It never really kind of made sense. And when it gives you Simulacrum, it just gives you the unactivated Simulacrum, which is the single Marine for 2 mana, or 2 techs worth of mana. So Simulacrum's been removed from the pool, so you should get more valuable things overall. Screaming Scrap, little damage increase from 90 to 100. Doesn't really change very much at all. There's no real kill thresholds from 90 to 100. So just a little bit more value. Maybe it needs a instantly caps the bridge keyword or something. I don't know. Okay, now we see a buff to the Spire Stag. Damage going up from 30 to 35. That's just the normal attack damage, not the charge damage, which I think is 150. Yep, says there on the card. And just like with Fanriel, the charge speed is going down from 12 to 10, so it can therefore capture a bridge. Zeppelin Bomber, health going up a little bit from 75 to 85, just make it a little bit more tanky. Okay, those are the buffs. Let's go into the rebalances, where things are not quite as straightforward. So a rebalance to Tronveir here. So his basic attack always had that knockback effect, which was very unique to him, but the devs has decided to remove that. They just felt like it didn't really add too much to the game, and it kind of just added a lot of annoyance with regards to, you know, things re-aggroing when they get knocked off a face, or just made it difficult when you wait for something to come over the bridge to get to your tower, so then you can take the bridge, but you know you can't do that until you've got to wait for the knockback, and then that. So yeah, that was kind of annoying. So they've removed that. They've also changed the way his attack works. So instead of being 150 damage every 6 seconds, it's 100 damage every 4 seconds. So the overall DPS is the same, but of course that's not necessarily the most telling thing. Attacking more quickly will mean that it will be better against Horde. Still not great though, because it's only once every 4 seconds. But he will take more hits to kill most things. So anything that's above 150 HP will take an extra hit compared to what it previously was. So not sure if I feel like that's probably overall worse for him. And as we alluded to earlier, the Wind Rune damage is going down from 200 to 150, so still a decent kill, but there's a lot of things that won't kill that previously it would, like the Succubus, for example. So it's still going to be good at clearing a chunk of minions together, but it's not going to have the highs like it previously did. And I quite like that change. Right, rebalance to one of the new cards from last season, Ankahesh Desert's Doom. So the base damage going up from 40 to 60, but the poison per attack is going down from 4 seconds to 3.5 seconds. And if you remember from our previous discussions about this minion, it does extra damage equal to the amount of poison that is on the minion. So not too much changed here, but it's definitely, I think, going to be better if it's on its own compared to if it's supported with other poisoning minions. Okay, here we have a lot of changes to the ATG drone. So the ATG drone X8, air to ground, that's always been a thing. It was called X8 originally because it had 8 attacks. When it was changed in the balance a long time ago, its attacks got reduced to 7, which kind of was awkward since it was called the X8, but now only has 7 attacks. But good news, we're back to 8 attacks. So a couple of things here. The health has gone down a little bit, and this is kind of like a bit of a meme thing that Entropy's done. So 225 to 222 health. He just liked the number 222. 222, 2 to the power of 3 is 8. It's the X8. Apparently that puts a smile on his face. Again, the damage going down from 10 to 8. The attack cooldown going down from 1 second to 0.9 seconds. And as we mentioned, the attack count going up from 7 to 8. So, attack count going up, attack cooldown going down, so those are buffs. Damage going down, so previously it was doing 7 lots of 10, so 70 damage. Well, now it's going to do 8 lots of 8, so 64 damage, so less damage overall. And the health, as we mentioned, gone down a little bit. Now the range one's a little bit interesting. So the range previously was 6. The range is going down to 4, but it also starts with marksmanship. So that means that its range is now always 6. Previously it could be 6, or if you played it with Stormbringer, marksmanship plus 2 is 8. So they've tried to make this change so it's a card that is as good in other decks as it is really, so it's more viable in other decks, not just Stormbringer decks. Okay, so range of 6. Next up we have a rebalance to the puffs. Now if you played Minion Masters for a long time, you'll know that the puffs used to be spawnable anywhere. Then for whatever reason they were changed so that puffs could only be spawned next to the tower, and there was some changes in the way they worked due to that. Now that's being removed. You can now play puffs anywhere, which there's a lot of cool things you can do with puffs. If you know unit speeds and puff speeds, you can use it to kite things away from your tower, take hits, all sorts of cool things that you can now do that previously you couldn't. And I think the change here is, you know, the puffs kind of got a bit of a nerf when we changed the bridge rules to have that 1.5 second timer, so this is making up for that a little bit. But because now you can play them anywhere, they no longer have that faster trigger that was kind of used to make up for the time that they had to get to the bridge. So puffs playable anywhere. And there's a couple of puffs getting nerfed. The healing puff's going to do less healing, 20 down to 15. And the shroom puff is not going to have Zenshi flow anymore. So you can't get the double shroom from the shroom puff. That was just felt to be a little bit too strong. So some changes there. Okay, so that's the rebalances. Next up we have the nerfs. What's getting weaker? Now, again, if you looked at my meta video recently, you'll know that APEP is not the dominant force as it has been in the past. But still, APEP getting a bit of a slap on the wrist. Attack damage going down from 30 to 25. And the attack cooldown going up, so it attacks slower from 2.4 to 2.5 seconds. And remember, the way APEP works is he either spits at 1 target, or if there's multiple targets, spits at 2. So the attack damage going down could be doubled, effectively, since there's, instead of 2 lots of 30, there could be 2 lots of 25. Right. So that's the APEP nerf. Next up, we have a nerf for Wrecked. And again, my meta video, Wrecked was the #1 master in solos. So basic, a cooldown going up from 0.8 seconds to 0.9 seconds. So that's Master Tower. DPS is going down. Wrecked on the field, DPS going down. Wrecked clones on the field, DPS going down. Also a nerf to his alt perk 3, the Mass Illusion. Cooldown going up from 20 to 25 seconds. And the number of illusions that you can get going down from 10 to 8. That was seemed to be a lot of where his power came from, especially in solos. Right, now we have a nerf. We spoke about Wrecked in solos. Ratbow in 2v2s was everywhere, and this is designed specifically to nerf that setup a little bit. So his Squeak Attack alt perk 2, where your Scrats at the tower spawn burrowed, and they do bonus damage on their first attack. They will only get those buffs if they're spawned by Ratbow's cards. So in solos, makes no difference. In 2v2s, only the Ratbow players generated Scrats will have the burrow and the extra damage. the teammate generating the scrats from their minion cards will just be basic normal scrats. So nice change there that only affects 2v2, which is where the change was kind of needed. Next up we have a change to Valorian. Both of Valorian perk 2s getting a nerf. So his default perk 2, Holy Light, the cooldown going up from 5 seconds to 6 seconds, so that's where he's healing friendly minions. And the alt perk 2, the Fervor, where you get the Fervent Warrior, the cooldown going up from 25 to 28 seconds. Next up we have a nerf for Volko. Was kind of surprised to see this, didn't really think this was particularly necessary. So his perk 1, Tempest Flaring, which is where you get the embers on the bridge where you can rage everything. The cooldown of those embers is going up from 20 to 25 seconds. Next up we have a nerf to the Bladestar, and Bladestar has been called OP and people have been requesting a nerf for quite a while, and I can really understand where that comes from, but I don't think this nerf is going to really pacify those people. So the duration is going down from 6 seconds to 5 seconds, but in a lot of occasions, a lot of situations, that's not going to make any difference, because of the way, if you use it well, you're going to hit the maximum number of hits before the duration expires. So remember, it does damage 10 times. So using it well and properly, you will generally not feel this nerf. This will definitely happen though if you miss things and it bounces around the arena and then it just comes back and clips something. You're going to see less of the value in that situation. But I don't think it's going to affect the highs, but overall the value will be down a little bit. Right, Blood Imps. So not specific Blood Imps, but a Blood Pact nerf. 75% to 85%. Remember, Blood Pact passes the damage received by these minions, including overkill damage, back to your master. So when we're talking about Blood Pact, we're talking about the Blood Imps, the Brutish Betrayer, and Gorik's Gate minions. So there's going to be more damage passed on to your master. They're going to be a little bit scarier to use. Nice change here to the Netherbats. So Netherbats normally were just, nether stepping everywhere, which made them really annoying to deal with, especially when they're on your face. You try to put stuff in the pocket, then they just jump and kill those. So the change here is they can still nether step, but they can't nether step for 2 seconds after attacking. And their attack cooldown is 1.2 seconds. So if they're attacking something stationary or attacking the master tower, they won't nether step off of that, because they will always be within this 2 seconds of attacking. But if they're attacking things that are moving, because remember, these are melee minions, so they've got to be right on top of something. So if stuff's moving and they're chasing it and that 2 second window expires and something else is within their range, then they can nether step. But I do like this change. It's definitely a nerf for the Netherbats, but I think it's a healthy one. For some reason, the War Dancers are just getting spanked recently. And they're getting it again. I'm not sure necessarily why they need it, but now you can only spawn them horizontally. So that's the same as things like the Slitherbound, as well as the Tantrum Flowers, for example, or Stun Lancers. So you can't split them to take both bridges. There is kind of a thing you can do with the Stun Lancers if you spawn them on your tower. The collision between the minions kind of pushes them apart, and you can split like that. I tried to do that with War Dancers. Didn't seem like that was feasible. Right, so those are all the balance changes. Next up, we're going to have a quick look at the fixes and improvements in this patch. And the good news is we have quite a few improvements with regards to in-game bugs. Okay, so being unable to load into a match, that's been fixed. That was the thing where if you changed your skin, it could clear the error and you could get into a match. That should be fixed now. Fixed the streamer UI and choosing perk 2. That was really annoying. You couldn't switch alt perks. If it was a perk 2, the other ones worked. Now they should all work. There was an issue with the Arcane Bolt hitbox, now been fixed. That was something to do with it not taking into account the size of minions. Fixed Stormbringer old perk 2 range indicators on buildings and melee units. I think old perk 2 just means his default perk. So although they wouldn't get the buff, it would show that they had the buff based on just the little white icon below them. Fixed the crossbow trap invisibility, so that was Diona's crossbow traps. The crossbow traps should remain invisible until they are in combat, whereas they weren't doing that. Fixed the Apep slave driver, alt perk 1 giving a broken slave. Fixed Kamikaze Zeppelin damage being incorrect. Fixed Near the Fallen being pink. if you ever noticed Nearville when it was flying away recently, it would be pink. Now it shouldn't be. Second page of fixes and improvements. Fixed Rex Mass Illusion for Team 2. So that seemed that his ult perk wasn't working or not working properly for Team 2. Fixed Snap Freeze, Frozen's duration. This is a good change. Snap Freeze should, like every other Frozen thing, freeze for 4 seconds. For some reason it was freezing for 6 or more seconds. That's now been fixed. Fixed the Setsu perk reload for player 2 and player 4. Fixed Simulacrum giving permanent minions if drawn because of a player book. I definitely saw some things where you had like Morelia's spellbook with a Simulacrum stuck in it, so hopefully that should be fixed. Also fixed ability cards plus player books. So that should be the spellbooks and the new APEP minion book. Fixed the Brutish Betrayer preview hovering. Fixed Null Matrix not working for player 3. This was a really weird one. People were saying, oh, Null Matrix is not working. Every time it was tested, everything was fine. And it turned out it was only broken for player 3. Why? Who knows? But that's now been fixed. Nice change here. Fixed Korgoth's attack not getting cancelled when stunned or frozen. Okay, so a good amount of gameplay fixes there. Most of the sort of the worst ones, I think, been fixed. Right, just very quickly, we're going to have a new tournament, of course, and we're not sure when the tournament date is, but watch this space. $400 prize pool. It should be a $400 prize pool with a 1v1 tournament. And remember, these are cross-platform, so Xbox, PC, mobile players can play. And there is a video, the VOD from yesterday, if you're watching. Well, I'm recording this on a Sunday. On Saturday, we had the first tournament with the alternate master perks, which was awesome. So if you haven't seen that VOD, check that out. Right, let's remind ourselves, what are we seeing in Bearzerker? Bearzerker. So Tuesday the 24th of September, we got the new season pass, we got the new Bearzerker card, we got the new ult perks for APEP and Wrecked. We got the new cosmetics, including that awesome new skin for Tronveir, all the balance changes and bug fixes, and the new tournament. That is pretty much everything that I wanted to discuss. Nice. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. Reminder, if you're not a subscriber yet, please hit the subscription button. I will keep you up to date on all things Minion Masters related. And of course, give us a thumbs up, get involved in the comments, all that good stuff. Engage the algorithm. And yeah, I look forward to jumping in on Tuesday when this goes live. And we'll see how the new season is. My name's Bearzerker, and I'll see you again soon here in the fish tank.